A final radio transmission echoed through the forest, broken, distorted, barely understandable. Voices overlapped through static. Someone sounded frightened. Someone else shouted coordinates. Then came one final sentence. "We're not alone out here." Seconds later, silence. Not gradual silence, not weak signal loss, complete silence. The transmission cut so suddenly, it sounded unnatural. An entire expedition team vanished after that message. No confirmed survivors, no complete explanation, only fragments of audio buried beneath static. The forest swallowed everything else. Blackwood Forest stretched for miles, dense trees, cold air, almost no nearby settlements. The kind of wilderness that absorbs sound, the kind of place where people disappear quietly. Search crews later described the woods, strangely, too still, too empty, as if something had interrupted normal life there. No birds, no movement, only wind pushing through trees. The missing team carried modern communication equipment, tracking devices, supplies, maps. They were prepared, experienced, organized, and yet, after one final transmission, they vanished completely. No confirmed attack, no clear evidence of accident, nothing explaining how an entire group disappeared so quickly, only static. And one terrifying possibility. Something happened inside Blackwood Forest. Something nobody ever fully understood. The first people to hear the transmission were radio operators. Routine monitoring, routine communication checks. At first, nothing sounded unusual. The expedition team reported weather conditions, location updates, equipment status, normal field activity. Then, subtle changes appeared. Static increasing unexpectedly, voices sounding distant, broken. Operators adjusted frequencies repeatedly, trying to clean the signal. The interference continued growing. Then came fragments of confusion. One voice claimed equipment malfunction. Another mentioned movement nearby. Branches breaking somewhere beyond the camp. At first, the operators assumed wildlife. Animals frequently trigger nervous reactions in isolated wilderness, but the tone kept changing. Fear became clearer. Someone whispered instead of speaking normally. Another voice interrupted suddenly. "They're outside again." That sentence disturbed investigators later, because nobody knew who they referred to. The transmission became chaotic after that. Static surged loudly. Signal strength fluctuated violently. One crew member sounded panicked. Another attempted coordinates. Then came the final line. "We're not alone out here." Silence followed immediately. Not even background noise remained. The signal disappeared completely. Tracking systems failed shortly afterward. Search teams were contacted quickly, but by the time rescuers entered Blackwood Forest, the expedition was already gone. No campfire, no movement, no people, only abandoned equipment scattered among trees. The atmosphere surrounding the site disturbed even experienced search crews, because it looked interrupted, not packed up, not evacuated, interrupted. To understand why the Blackwood Forest Incident became infamous, you have to understand the expedition itself. The group entered Blackwood Forest for research purposes, environmental surveying, communication testing, regional mapping. Nothing extraordinary, nothing dangerous on paper. The team consisted of trained personnel, researchers, field technicians, communication specialists, people familiar with wilderness operations. They carried supplies for extended work, navigation equipment, radio systems, emergency resources, everything required for isolation. Blackwood Forest itself already carried a reputation. Remote, dense, difficult to navigate. Certain areas lacked reliable maps entirely. The deeper sections remained rarely visited. Locals avoided parts of the woods whenever possible. Stories circulated constantly. Missing hikers, strange sounds, lights between trees at night. Most dismissed those stories as folklore, But the expedition members reportedly discussed them anyway, mostly joking. Mostly, the operation began normally. Camp established, equipment functioning, weather manageable, communication systems remained active initially. Routine reports reached base without concern. Nothing suggested danger. Then interference began. Small at first, minor signal distortion, static bursts, communication delays. Field teams often experienced technical problems in remote terrain. No one panicked immediately. The forest environment complicated transmission naturally. Dense trees weaken signals. Weather alters frequencies. Everything still seemed explainable until the distortions intensified and the voices changed. The escalation unfolded slowly enough to feel believable. That is what makes the incident terrifying. No sudden monster, no dramatic attack, just gradual collapse. The team first reported navigation inconsistencies, markers appearing misplaced, coordinates behaving strangely, equipment readings conflicting with maps. One member believed their compass malfunctioned temporarily. Another blamed magnetic interference. The explanations sounded reasonable at first. Then, radio interference worsened dramatically. Operators struggled hearing full sentences, static bursts, interrupted conversations constantly. Voices faded unexpectedly, sometimes returning clearer moments later, almost like the forest itself distorted communication. The team attempted repositioning equipment. Signal quality improved briefly, then collapsed again. At night, the atmosphere shifted further. The crew reported hearing movement outside camp repeatedly. Heavy movement. Not small animals, something larger. Branches snapping, footsteps circling, at least according to the transmissions. Search investigators later reviewed the recordings carefully. The fear sounds genuine. That detail matters enormously because fear changes voices instantly, and the expedition members sounded increasingly frightened. One transmission captured an argument. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others wanted to continue operations until daylight. The disagreement intensified tension significantly. Then came reports of lights, brief flashes moving through trees, white at times, sometimes blue, never stable, never close enough to identify clearly. One crew member suggested another group nearby, but no permits existed for nearby operations. No other teams were scheduled inside Blackwood Forest. That realization changed the tone completely. The transmissions became faster afterward, more fragmented. Someone claimed equipment disappeared overnight. Another claimed hearing voices deeper in the woods, voices not belonging to the expedition. Then came panic, real panic. The final hour of communication sounded drastically different from earlier transmissions. Breathing heavier, speech rushed, static, overwhelming sentences. One voice repeatedly asked if someone was moving outside camp. Another insisted nobody leave the tents alone. Then something happened. The exact trigger remains unclear, but the final recordings captured immediate terror, shouting, movement, equipment crashing. One member attempted emergency coordinates. Another interrupted screaming, something unintelligible. Then the final sentence emerged through distortion. "We're not alone out here." Silence followed instantly. Search teams entered the forest the following day. Conditions felt wrong immediately. That detail appears repeatedly in reports. Experienced rescuers described unusual silence, no wildlife sounds, no movement. The expedition camp was eventually located, partially intact, but abandoned. Equipment remained scattered across the site, tents damaged slightly, supplies left behind, personal belongings untouched, no bodies discovered, no obvious blood evidence, no clear signs of animal attack, just absence. Tracking efforts failed repeatedly. Dogs struggled maintaining scent trails. Rain complicated evidence recovery, and the deeper investigators searched, the stranger the forest felt. Some rescuers later refused returning to certain sections. They described overwhelming unease, disorientation, the sensation of being watched. None of that proves anything supernatural, but it intensified the mythology surrounding the case. Theories emerged almost immediately. One explanation involves wilderness exposure. Panic inside isolated terrain can become deadly quickly. Fear spreads through groups. Poor decisions follow. Perhaps the expedition fragmented during confusion. Perhaps members became lost separately. Dense forests kill quietly. Exposure, falls, disorientation. That theory remains realistic, but it struggles explaining total disappearance. No remains, no confirmed tracks, no complete evidence trail. Another theory focuses on hallucinations, stress, sleep deprivation, environmental factors. Certain natural conditions can distort perception. Fear amplifies suggestion. One frightened team member affects everyone else. Group paranoia becomes possible, especially inside isolation. That could explain strange reports, lights, voices, movement. But again, it does not fully explain the aftermath. Secret experiments became another theory. Blackwood Forest reportedly existed near restricted territory historically. Some believe military testing occurred nearby secretly. Signal interference, psychological experiments, classified operations, those ideas remain speculative, but the communication distortions fueled suspicion heavily, especially because equipment failures seemed unusually severe. Then there are theories involving unknown activity, not necessarily supernatural, simply unknown, unidentified people operating inside the forest, illegal activity, hidden camps, something the expedition encountered accidentally. That explanation frightens many investigators because it feels plausible, realistic, human, but no evidence confirmed organized involvement either. The mystery survives because every explanation leaves gaps, too many gaps. Why did communication fail so completely? Why abandon equipment? Why did no one return? And perhaps most disturbing, why did trained professionals sound so terrified? The atmosphere of the recordings still unsettles listeners today. Static, swallowing voices, fear leaking through broken transmissions, the sense that something unseen stood beyond the edge of camp, listening, waiting. The climax of the incident remains chilling because it exists entirely through sound, not images, not witnesses, only audio. Transmission ended, but the mystery never did. One final sentence. Then silence, stretching across decades. No conclusion, no confirmed deaths, no full explanation. Only unanswered static, buried somewhere in forgotten recordings, somewhere inside those words. Something happened, and no one ever found the full truth.